Hey guys, editing Matt here. I just wanted to let you guys know that in this episode, for whatever reason, OBS, what I was using to record during this time, it just decided to mess up my recording for no reason. I've switched to a different recording software that works much better, but for this episode in particular, it's the only it's the only rough recording. I sound a bit robot-y. I don't think it's unlistenable by any means, but I thought I'd just let you guys know. Alright, enjoy the episode. Good evening and welcome to Road Trip Criminals, the show where we cover one crime from every state in the United States. Today, we are on episode 4, and we are covering Arkansas. I'm here with Jessica.
Hello.
And before we get started, I believe you have some facts about Arkansas.
I do have a couple of fun facts for y'all. So, Arkansas, it does have an official nickname.
Yes.
Second one we've covered so far that has one. And it is the natural state.
Natural state. I knew that one.
Yep. It's on, I believe, all the license plates, right?
It is. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was when we were there at least.
Yeah, we lived there when we were we were young for most of our lives, actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
We moved around a few times, but
Yeah.
we lived there from when I was in preschool to 9th grade.
Wow. I was there 7th through 12th.
We also lived in Mountain Home.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we lived in two different places in
I
Arkansas.
went there. Yeah, I lived there 2nd grade to 6th grade, and then started 7th and
through 12th.
Bentonville. Yeah, through 12th. So 7th through 12th in Bentonville.
Mm-hmm. So we spent a good half of our lives there.
A lot of time in Arkansas.
A lot of time in Arkansas. So it's probably the state I know most about because we had to take like Arkansas history class and stuff like that. So, but I don't know why it's called the natural state. So, what's up with that?
Well, hopefully I can answer you. Also, quick fun fact: the former nickname of it was the Bear State. So we'll also get to that.
Okay. Never saw a bear when I was there. I've seen more bears in
No,
Tennessee.
see a lot more bears here in Tennessee. Yeah.
I guess probably why they changed it.
Probably. So it was called the natural state, and that's been the official nickname since 1995.
Okay.
So been there a good while. But they decided to call it that for its just its natural beauty and things like that. But I was also told in my Arkansas history class that it was called that because Arkansas has such drastic sort of changes in weather as you go south. And so we were also like self-sustainable.
Right. With the natural
so
disaster
like a lot
state.
of the southern, yeah, basically you hear all those tornadoes in Fort Smith or whatever, and Mena.
Yeah, we were Tornado Valley, right on the edge of it.
Yes, but there's a lot of rice and things grown in the southern part of Arkansas, and so, and they grow all sorts of other stuff there too, corn and soybeans, I believe, as well. And so,
yeah, isn't Arkansas?
I was told,
isn't Arkansas the biggest producer of rice outside of like Asia or something like that? I feel like I heard that.
It might be. I'm not sure. I didn't.
Or maybe it's just in the U.S. But
maybe in the U.S.
But I know they make a lot of rice there.
They have a lot of rice, but because of that, Arkansas could be fairly self-sustaining from all of that, and so that's another reason why I was told it was called the natural state, was because of how self-sustaining it could be.
That makes sense.
Yep. So let's get to why it used to be called the Bear State.
I think I have a few guesses.
So, I don't think it's too hard to guess. Well, except for the lack of bears.
Right.
That makes it a little bit harder to guess. But the first recorded instance of it being called the Bear State was in 1858.
Okay.
So that was around for a while. But other states have also been called the Bear State, so this doesn't make Arkansas special,
Just
obviously.
any state where there are bears, they slap that title
It's
on.
the Bear State, right? Oh, goodness. But it's because apparently in the first half of the 19th century, Arkansas had a lot of Louisiana black bears in there. So I guess we were in the northern part of Arkansas, so we wouldn't see
Right.
the Louisiana black bears, because those would probably be down south.
Makes sense, yeah.
Although, to be fair, when we were in Louisiana, I never saw a Louisiana black bear
It's
either.
true.
So,
Also,
of course, I was also in the...
we were living in the Ozarks, so where
Right,
you were,
yeah. And
think
when I
you'd
was
see
living in
more bears.
Louisiana, I was living in the Gulf.
Yeah, you
so
live in the bayou.
more bayou,
Yeah.
less bears.
Right, more alligators.
More alligators, yeah. Apparently there are 16 black bear species found in the United States. So, lots of black bears in the U.S. So, that's why it was called the Bear State
Cool.
at that time. I don't know what the population of bears is in Arkansas currently.
I couldn't tell.
I'm just fortunate that I've never run into one while I was there.
Yeah, no, I've never even heard of an encounter there when I lived there.
Yeah. Something else fun was that Arkansas was also called the Toothpick State.
Okay.
And that's in reference to the Bowie knife handles. Because during that time, you know, the 1800s or whatever, everyone was carrying around a Bowie knife. And so, basically on everyone's hip you could see the handle of the Bowie knife, so it was
Right.
the Toothpick State.
The wooden handle, yeah.
Yep. Also, it's also going to be called the Razorback State because,
Got a lot of hogs.
you know, the hogs.
Which I also never saw a hog while when we lived there.
Never saw those either. I wonder if those were also in the South.
Apparently, they got all the cool stuff.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd call wild animals cool necessarily. They're cool as long as they're not near me.
Yeah, we just got tornadoes.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Right. One more fun one is rack and sack. So, rack and sack was actually an insult. And basically a slur against rural Arkansans. They were basically portrayed as, like, you know, the stereotypical hillbilly,
Right.
banjo on the porch sort of thing. But they decided to take the word back. So actually, locals in Mountain Home took it back. Specifically, it seems like the sort of head of that was someone named Jimmy Driftwood.
Okay.
I know. It's a fantastic name.
That's a name.
But they basically took back the name and started the Rackensack Folklore Society. So it was the Rackensack Folklore Society, and now it's the Ozark Folk Center. So they took something that people were insulting them with and repurposed it into something they could be proud of.
There you
So
go.
good for them. So Arkansas's motto is also in Latin, but in English, it's "The people rule."
Okay.
Yep. The state bird is the mockingbird.
I knew that
The
one.
state flower is the apple blossom. The state mammal is the white-tailed deer. Saw quite a few of those while I was there.
Yes.
The state food is the pecan.
Okay.
Yep, why not? The state beverage is milk.
That makes sense.
Yep. And the state dance is the square dance, which I never learned while I was there.
Nope,
Unfortunate,
me
but
neither. No. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the state mineral is the diamond, isn't it?
yes, I believe so.
'Cause-
Well, the state gemstone is the
Right.
diamond. The state mineral is the quartz. Because yes, in Jonesboro, I believe there was diamond there.
There's
I don't know
also
if they used to call it Jonesboro.
in southern Arkansas there was the diamond mine, which we went to when
Yeah.
we were kids.
Yes, I thought that was the one in Jonesboro. Yeah,
I thought it was further south.
not sure. I don't remember. I know there was like a big, almost tourist sort of one in
Yes.
Jonesboro.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, Arkansas has like diamonds there or had diamonds there. I don't
I
know
think they still
how
do.
their diamond, facilities are running.
Yeah. I imagine they still do.
Yep. So the state gemstone, diamond, state mineral is quartz, and state rock is bauxite, just in case anyone is curious.
Cool.
Yep. But that's all for my fun facts.
Cool.
So we'll go ahead and head into our not as fun facts.
Tell me about crime.
I will. So today we'll be talking about Maud Crawford from Camden, Arkansas.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Camden.
No, it's further south, I believe, more on the western side, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So Maud was born as Maud Robinson on June 22nd of 1891 in Greenville, Texas.
Okay.
She was the oldest of 4 children that her parents had. So her mother died when Maud was 9. Not her mother. Her mother was not 9 when she died.
Right.
When Maud was 9, her mother died. And so her maternal grandmother actually raised her in Warren, Arkansas.
Okay.
So Maud graduated from Warren High School in 1911.
All right.
She was the valedictorian. So, congratulations, Maud. And she attended the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville,
Hey,
actually.
I know that one.
Yeah, know that one as well. Took an SAT there.
I think I went there once for a Boy Scout thing.
There you
That's
go.
about it.
Yeah. I also, toured the University of Arkansas since we lived right around that
30
area.
minutes from there, yeah.
Yeah. But in 1916, she actually got a job as a stenographer, which is,
Cool.
the person that transcribes what people are saying.
Mhm.
So, like, the court stenographer is the person who's writing down what everyone's saying in court,
Right.
things like that. So she got a job as a stenographer at the Gone law firm in Camden, Arkansas. So that's how she got to Camden.
Okay.
On December 7th of 1925, Maud marries her husband from then on, Clyde Crawford. They end up never having any children together,
Okay.
but it seems like they were happy together.
That's good. That's what matters.
Yep. So yeah, in 1927, Maud was allowed to take the bar exam, even though she had never gone to law school.
Wow.
But no, they have a thing, or at least they used to have a thing, where because she had worked at a law firm, she had acquired legal knowledge, and so she was allowed to take the exam for that because she had experience, basically.
Cool.
Yep.
That's-
So, a couple fun facts here so Maud took that in 1927, which is 10 years after women were first allowed to practice law in Arkansas.
Okay.
Yep. So the first female lawyer in Arkansas was Sarah Shields, who became a lawyer in 1918.
Okay.
So she was the first female lawyer in Arkansas.
Hmm.
In case anyone was curious, the first state to allow a woman to become a lawyer was Iowa in 1869. So Iowa was on top of it.
There you go. Interesting choice.
Yep. All I knew about Iowa before was that they had a lot of corn. And now they're also the first state to allow a woman to become a lawyer. Super ahead of everyone else,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Good 50 years.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Maud. So she took the exam at the University of Arkansas School of Law with students that had graduated from the School of Law. And she managed to pass first in the class.
Damn. All right.
So,
All right.
way to go, Maud.
Yeah.
So, Maud worked for the Gone, McClellan, and Laney law firm, which I don't... So, earlier I said that she got her job as a stenographer at the Gone law firm. I'm not sure if McClellan and Laney were with them at that time, or if they came in as partners later.
Okay.
The everything I saw just called it the Gone law firm at first, and then added the other two later.
Okay.
So I have to assume that at some point The other two came in as partners. Also, the McClellan in there, he would later become a senator for Arkansas.
Okay.
So,
Good for him.
yep. So
She was running in high circles then.
yes, she had some names with her.
Yeah.
Of course, she was making a name for herself as well. She was doing very well.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yes. So Maud worked at that law firm in estate management and titles.
Okay.
She was actually the title expert at the firm, and the first female lawyer in Camden.
Okay.
So, but both of those were important in the area because there was an oil boom going on in that time. In 1940, skipping around a few years, 1940, she was the first woman elected to the Camden City Council and served until 1948. In 1942, she was one of the founders of the Arkansas Girl State. There was already a Arkansas Boy State, which that allowed high school students, for the girls on girls and the boys on boys, obviously, to go to Little Rock for a week and study how the government works. So
Cool.
she was able to help a lot of girls go potentially into government work for that sort of thing. She was one of the 8 counselors for that program from 1942 until 1957. So
Okay.
she did a lot of work with them to help them out. She was the president of pretty much every women's club that she was able to. So she was the president of the Business and Professionals Women's Club, the American Legion Auxiliary, and the Pilot Club International, which was a sister club of Rotary International before Rotary accepted women.
Okay.
The Pilot Club actually named her Woman of the Year in 1954.
Wow.
And when Camden was awarded Outstanding Community Improvement in 1955, Maud was selected to go to Little Rock and give the acceptance speech and accept the award on behalf of Camden.
Wow.
So Maud was doing very well.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So Maud also had was friends with a woman named Rose Berg, who owned a lot of land and things in Camden around that time. However, Rose came down with what seems to be Alzheimer's. She was never officially diagnosed, but it's believed to be Alzheimer's. And so Maud became her legal guardian because Rose was a widow at that point.
Okay.
And I believe in the end, her estate was worth about $20 million at that time. So Maud was in charge of protecting that estate because she was an estate manager and Rose's friend.
Right.
So that comes into play later.
Yeah, I imagine it would. So that's 20 million at the time?
At the time.
Jesus.
So 20 million at the time. Currently, about $185 million.
Christ.
Yes. So she was worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Like I said, she owned a lot of land, and a lot of it had oil on it. And she also owned timber companies, or land that the timber companies were taking wood from.
Right.
So a lot of that worth comes from that as well, those
It's insane.
businesses. Yes. So, Saturday, March 2nd, 1957. It's a cold, foggy, rainy night. And Maud was sitting in her living room watching TV and shelling beans. Nearby her protective Dalmatian, named Dowell, lay keeping an eye over her.
Okay.
Clyde, her husband, went to the downtown Malco Theater to see a movie, as he did every night, and then headed to the Carter Liquor Store for some beers. Around 8:30 that night, Maud's cousin calls her, and they chat for a bit, and that's the last that anyone hears of Maud. So Clyde returns around 11:30 that night, and noticed that the lights were on both inside and outside.
Okay.
The TV was still on, and the beans that Maud had been working on were still on the table, along with several of her legal documents that I suppose she was looking over.
Mm-hmm.
Her car was still in the driveway with the key in the ignition, which is apparently how she kept it, because she doesn't believe in safety.
Oh, that's a different time.
It was a different time, but it was still very odd to me. But the key was in the ignition. That's the way she kept it. Car was in the driveway. Her purse with $142, which is about $1,300 today, was inside the house untouched.
Okay.
Dal, which was Maud's, overprotective Dalmatian, didn't seem upset or ruffled. He didn't seem to be bothered that Maud wasn't there. Allegedly, Claude had asked Dal, "Where's Maud?" and Dal had gone to the door, leading outside.
Okay.
So, don't know how true that is. That's just something I saw and thought, because apparently Clyde told the police that. So, all the doors leading outside were unlocked at that time as well.
Okay.
Once again, different time period.
Yeah.
So, seeing as there was nothing in the house to help locate her, Clyde waits until about 1 a.m. to see if she returns. And when she hadn't, he heads out and goes around town looking to see if he can find any trace of her.
Mm-hmm.
So he stopped some police officers to ask if there had been a car accident, to possibly explain her absence.
Right.
Apparently they answered in the negative because he continued looking. Mm-hmm. He checked cafes and some of her friends' homes to see if he could find any sign of her. Still nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So at 2 a.m., he decides to go to the police and report her missing. At the time of her disappearance, Maud was 65 years old, 5'5", 165 pounds, had gray hair and blue eyes.
Okay.
So the next day, police and volunteers searched for Maud all through the county.
Mm-hmm.
And her disappearance was actually published in newspapers across the country, because at that point, McClellan had become a senator. He was an inactive partner at her law firm, but he was still once a partner there, right?
Right.
So because of her knowing him, that's how it became known across the entire nation that she had gone missing.
Right.
However, no trace of Maud has ever been found.
Okay.
The FBI even placed her on their missing persons list.
Mm-hmm.
But again, no
top.
trace has been found of her.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So about 2 weeks after her disappearance, the police chief was reported saying, "We have not turned up a single clue," which is just what you want to hear from the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the newspaper that reported him saying that believed that the case was at a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
There was a clue that ended up showing up in April of 1957. Clyde had ended up selling Maud's car, and the new owner found a grocery receipt dated from March 2nd of 1957, which is the day that she disappeared.
Okay.
And it had a Camden telephone number written on the back.
I see.
So he turned that over to the police, who thanked him, but he never heard anything back from them past that.
Okay.
So we don't know if it had any relation to the case or not.
Yeah.
In 1969, Maud was officially declared dead and a victim of foul play.
Mm-hmm.
Clyde had died in 1969, never knowing what happened to his wife.
Shame.
So at the time of her disappearance, the main theory that people had was that Maud had been kidnapped by the mafia to intimidate Senator McClellan, because he had been working with Robert Kennedy investigating the mafia ties to organized labor.
Right.
So basically, due to her ties to him, she was potentially put at risk. However, no ransom note ever ended up showing up. and Senator McClellan stated that the mafia wouldn't try to intimidate him. So
Right.
that theory pretty much was dropped.
Yeah, it makes sense because
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to intimidate them. You'd want to play innocent, you know?
Right. Yeah. But even if you didn't want to intimidate him, why would you pick someone from a former law firm and not like a child or a wife
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Another family member?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many degrees of separation for it to make sense for a mafia.
Yes. Right.
Or maybe it was the mafia, but it wasn't connected to him.
Right. Yeah. So we get a much more solid theory from a woman named Beth Brickle.
Mm-hmm.
So Beth Brickle returned to her hometown of Camden in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, she had been working as an actress and had decided to write a screenplay, actually, and had heard about what had happened to Maud, so she decided to go back to investigate some of it and base her screenplay off of that.
Cool.
So after going around for about a week and finding out that it hadn't ever properly been investigated, Beth decided to throw out that screenplay and write an investigative newspaper report instead.
Okay.
So, yeah, she saw that justice hadn't been served and decided to do her best to serve justice instead.
There you go.
So this led her to a 16-month-long investigation, which included death threats to her and threats of legal action to the newspaper that ended up publishing her story. But in the end, she and the newspaper persevered, and the end result was an 18-article front-page series in the Arkansas Gazette, which is now the Arkansas Democratic Gazette or something like that. I don't remember. I remember seeing it when we were in Arkansas, but I don't remember the exact name of it.
I just thought it was the Gazette still. But I can't say I remember the newspaper all that well.
Well, yeah.
So, did we ever find out who was sending her death threats?
Just, no one was named, but you may see soon who she's kind of pointing fingers at, who may be interested in sending death threats her way.
Right.
And the person who threatened to sue the newspaper was the wife of the person she was accusing.
Okay.
Which, even though she threatened to sue, she never actually went through with the lawsuit. So, just empty words.
Right.
Since then, Beth has combined the articles into a book that she sells on her website. But the first article is available for free on that website. So if you want to have a look, go on there. It should be one of the links down below. I believe it's like Luminaire Films or something like that.
Lumiere Films?
Is her website? Something like that.
Um,
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I'll be sure to put that in the description for this episode. Should be at the top, probably.
There you go. It's the one that starts with an L and has films in it. I can never remember her name, the name of her website. I'm so sorry. But, as I said before, I think her theory, I'm just going to call it a theory for now, her theory of what happened to Maud is the strongest theory.
Okay.
So Beth points her finger at Mike Berg, which was Rose Berg's nephew.
Okay.
As the culprit.
I already see where this is going.
Yes. So he was already a multimillionaire businessman. And he was also appointed to the Arkansas State Police Commission in 1955, which he served on until his death in 1975.
Okay.
So he ended up dying before Beth came back to research, because she came back in 1985, so 10 years after his death.
Gotcha.
So, it turns out that Mike believed he was entitled to his aunt's fortune.
Okay.
At this point, his uncle had already passed away, which the way that his uncle had split the estate was that he had given a quarter to Mike and left the rest to Rose.
Okay.
But Mike thought he was entitled to it because he believed that his father had been the main contributor to the business that his father and uncle had run together, which I believe was called the Berg Brothers or something like that. He thought his father had put in all the work, and I don't know why he would think he didn't get any reward, or that he was entitled to the rest of it if it was split.
Right.
I don't know.
He sounds like a douche.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, Rose apparently had a will where she left everything to her 3 nieces and nothing to Mike.
Okay.
That had been written in 1957 by Maud.
Okay.
So, the nieces were not on the Berg side. It was on the other side of her family.
Okay.
That her nieces were on. Her nieces also didn't live in Arkansas. 2 lived in California, and 1 lived in either Illinois or Iowa. I cannot remember. It was one of the I states. Or maybe it was Idaho. Maybe Idaho, too. Idaho is also an I state. One of the I states her other niece lived in. So, Mike didn't want to share any of the estate with people who didn't even live in the same state. Because, basically, at the end of it, all of them would have a quarter of the estate, right? Since Rose had 3 quarters and Mike had 1 quarter, and split along the 3 nieces, they'd each get a quarter of the estate.
Right.
So again, he didn't like the thought of sharing, apparently. He never learned that sharing was caring.
No, most rich people don't.
No. So, as I said, in 1957 is when Maud wrote that will up for Rose. However, all of the copies of the will happened to disappear.
Okay.
Right?
Of course.
So, one copy had been in Rose's safety deposit box at the bank. One was in the Berg business office, and one was in Maud's office.
Okay.
The nieces only had unsigned copies, and so you can't prove anything with it, right? So, it turns out that there were some deeds found in the courthouse that had been signed by Rose after her mental state had started declining.
Right.
And she would basically go along with anything.
Okay.
That transferred a large amount of those timber assets I was telling you about. Those were transferred to Hugh Mosley, who was a timberman who worked for Mike.
I see.
And then there was a deed that transferred them from Hugh to Mike. So, there were several sketchy deeds like that at the courthouse. That gave Mike parts of Rose's estate until he basically owned everything. So, the nieces weren't thrilled. Were obviously very suspicious of Mike at this point.
I imagine so.
But things got a bit more complicated because George Bauer, who was the co-executor of the estate, Thomas Gahn, which was one of the partners at Maud's workplace, if you remember, he was the one that she had been working with probably the longest. Those 2 and Mike Berg were actually fairly close. They were all friends.
Right.
So, very not good when the co-executor of the estate and a lawyer are close friends with the person you aren't having a good time with.
Right.
So, this leads to how they could potentially get to all of those other wills, right? Because George Bauer was the one in possession of the one at the Berg office. So he just shreds that or whatever.
Right.
Gahn would be able to get to the one in Maud's office since he was a partner there. And Mike himself had actually stolen bonds from Rose's safety deposit box before, and Gahn had to talk him into putting them back. So he had already stolen things from Rose's safety deposit box before. What's the will at this point?
Right.
So if you're wondering how all those copies got destroyed,
That explains it.
that could be how. But since it involved someone in her own office, Maud knew that she had to kind of keep all this on a down low, the infighting and stuff.
Right.
So she did her best to fight Mike and make sure that Rose's wish to have everything go to her nieces was completed, right? She fought Mike with everything she had.
Right.
So about a month before she ended up disappearing, Maud actually ended up confronting Mike about stealing timber, those timber assets from Rose's estate. Which, don't confront shady people.
Right.
Because they're shady and will disappear you real quick. Also, shortly before she disappeared, Maud actually ended up telling Rose's nieces that after she retired, she was going to bring a lawsuit against Mike about the deeds that he had created to try and go around Rose's will. So Mike might have heard about that too, since that was shortly before she disappeared.
Right.
And that would give, both of those things where she confronted him and the lawsuit would give probably the best motive, plus just her being a hindrance to him, would be the motive for him to get rid of her. Just so he could do as he pleased. A lot of this has more or less been confirmed, or I guess the motive and how sketchy Mike was has been confirmed by Otis A. Henley, which was a detective assigned to Maud's case. So he ended up telling Beth that he had found evidence that pointed to Mike as the culprit. But when he told his superiors, they told him there was too much money involved and took him off the case and reassigned him.
Classic.
And, and all of his files on the case disappeared.
Of course.
Because remember, at this point, Mike was also part of the police commission. So, yeah.
Leave it to cops.
Yep. So, after Maud disappeared, there wasn't really anyone to stop Mike. So he was able to take his aunt's estate, which again, worth $20 million at that time, or $185 million in our time. He was able to take that with basically no fight. There was nothing really the nieces could do at this point. He did end up giving each of Rose's nieces $187,000, which is about $1,700,000 today. But they had to agree to relinquish their but they had to relinquish their claims for Rose's estate. So he was basically like, you can get this money, but you have to give up the rest of the estate, right?
Right. You can have 1/100th of the estate.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose they ended up going with that. They probably thought it was better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean...
So... I don't know what else they could do, right? I'm sure they felt awful for Maud disappearing because of all this. So, it was very, not a whole lot they could do in that situation, so...
Yeah, hands are tied,
Yeah. You wouldn't want to put anyone else in danger either to try and fight him some more, so... But, as a result of Beth's series, Maud's case was actually reopened by prosecutor Bill McLean.
Good.
So, McLean
now that they're
subpoenaed
not
Mike's body.
corrupt anymore.
Well,
Well, okay. Keep going.
Well, yeah. McLean subpoenaed Mike's bodyguard, Jack Doris. McLean suspected that Jack was involved with Maud's disappearance. So, but Jack had cancer.
Okay.
And when McLean arrived to interview Jack, he found his family and the sheriff, who was a cousin of someone who worked for Mike, there to meet him.
Okay.
Yep. So the sheriff told off McLean because he felt that McLean was overstepping his bounds by operating in his county without his say so, basically. Right?
What year was this?
This was 85 or after.
Right.
I don't have an exact date,
Okay.
but that's when the article was run, so it must have been 85 or
Okay.
a little bit later. But Mike still had those ties, I suppose. And during the time McLean was able to see Jack, he was groggy and incoherent. So McLean couldn't ask him any questions.
Right.
And
Sheriff probably drugged him.
Jack died 7 hours. Yeah, right? But Jack died 7 hours later, like after McLean had arrived.
Yeah.
So I am also a little bit suspicious that he wasn't encouraged to into his grave.
Right. Yeah. Well, what was his name? McLean?
He was the prosecutor.
Oh, he was the prosecutor. Okay.
The bodyguard was Jack
Right.
Doris.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
cool. Take back everything I said about cops being good. Last time I fall for complimenting
Yeah.
a police officer.
Or at least the ones in Camden around that time.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, even then, like, what, 20 years later? They're still corrupt.
Yeah. Right.
Like, are they still
Yeah, because
getting his
that was
money?
even.
Or what?
Well, I wonder. That's the sort of thing, right? Because he had died at that
Yeah,
point
he'd been
a
dead for a
decade
while.
before then. Yeah. But, like I said, the sheriff had that tie because his cousin had worked for Mike. And so he might even feel like it's a family thing almost at that point where it's like, oh, he did right by my family, so I'm going to try and do right by him, sort of thing,
by
right?
corrupting justice. Classic sheriff.
Yes. By not giving proper justice to those who needed it.
Do you know if the sheriff is still alive?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't even know the sheriff's
Cool.
name at that point. So.
Well, if he is, and by any chance he's listening to this, hey, you took an oath. That's all I'll say. You're a bastardization of justice, and so is the rest of your police force.
Yep. Except for the one who tried to bring
except
the
except
evidence
for him.
forward
He's
and
good.
was not allowed to.
Except for the person who stuck by his oath.
Yes.
Also, never mind, keep going.
Okay. Yes, please don't anger the police force, Matthew.
What are they going to do? They're not going to leave their jurisdiction. They're resting on their
Hopefully.
laurels with rich man money, right?
So, after Jack died, at that point, even at this point, basically everyone involved with the case has died. So, no one has tried to reopen it or anything like that. It's remained unsolved, but basically in name only.
Right. I mean, I think
Yes.
I think it's really just waiting for someone who isn't corrupt in the police force to come forward and say, yeah, he did it. Like,
Yeah.
to posthumously close
And
the case.
again, yeah. However, I'm not sure how many of those officers are still alive today,
Right,
or
or
are in
still
the
involved in the
proper
police
state of
force.
mind.
Yeah.
Yes, to do so, because this did take place in the 50s,
Right.
so they would have been
But it still had an
in their
effect
20s.
30
at least,
years
but-
later. You know?
Yes,
So,
that's true. Yes,
the 80s were,
and
that was 35 years ago, was that.
yes,
So, they could still have influence. So, I mean, it's a matter of time. But
maybe. Yeah,
hopefully they'll get a sheriff from out of town or something who doesn't have any connections and isn't
yeah.
like them, you know?
Yeah, someone who hadn't been influenced, who's willing to
Yeah, who hadn't been paid
to
off.
put right, who would be able to officially close the case. Maybe, assuming they didn't destroy the records from that police officer,
I mean, even if they did,
put those forward something.
they can't destroy, what's her name's Beth, right? They can't destroy her
Beth,
stuff.
Brickle.
And
yeah.
that's all there.
Yes.
So it might take a bit longer to rebuild the case, but still, like, you know.
Right. And I mean, they won't officially be able to close it, right? Because they won't be able to bring him to trial since he died.
Right, but they can
in 75.
posthumously indict him.
Right. So it won't be very satisfying since he basically got what he wanted and died free. But
yeah, but
it would give closure
I mean,
to Maud's case.
It's exposing this guy as the scumbag he is, and
yeah,
you know, fully showing it to the world, stopping the defense, exposing those corrupt cops, you know.
Yeah.
It's still justice.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
it came a bit too
Not
late
necessarily...
because of the corrupt cops.
Yes. Right.
Because I'm sure they knew who it was from the get-go.
Right.
Because you said the police basically didn't investigate, right?
Right.
So he probably just sent an email like, hey, I killed this woman. Like,
well, he didn't send an email because it was in the 50s, but...
sent a letter or had a drink with his bud, you know? Said, hey, don't investigate this.
Right, exactly, because he had those connections.
So, and, you know, back then, just a letter from a friend being like, hey, don't investigate this. You're like, yeah, okay. I didn't take an oath.
Right.
Fucking... corrupt cops piss me off.
Yep. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Because it always ends up causing a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
And that makes me so angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing you agree to do whenever you become a cop, you don't do because someone asked you not to. Like, it's fucking stupid. Or someone gave you a $20 bill.
Yes. Yeah,
like,
slid you some money under the
Jesus
table.
Christ. Do your fucking job. Yeah. Like, come on.
Right.
I mean, it's like giving a surgeon a 50 and being like, hey, don't operate on this person. Like, yeah, okay.
Right,
like,
yeah.
It's just stupid.
God.
And, like, yeah.
Right.
You'll get some money, but, like, you know, maybe you will sleep well at night, but I hope you don't.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Like, and also, speaking of douchebags, Mike himself.
Yeah.
Like, man.
He feels like such a smarmy asshole. I just want to, like, slam his head into the ground, just rub it in the dirt, right? I mean, like, it's one of those guys.
He really is just like a fucking, like, cartoon villain. Like
yes.
when you were describing him, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but he legitimately sounded like Adrian Brody's character from the Grand Budapest Hotel. Like, just the most animated, over-the-top villain who is just the most hateable douche.
You should look up a picture of him, because he has that real thin mustache, too.
What's his name?
Like that slicked back hair. Mike Berg. Berg. From Camden, Arkansas, just in case that matters.
Is this Henry Meyer Berg?
I can't see.
Yeah, I mean he looks like the dude from Willy Wonka. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he looks like the bad guy from Willy Wonka.
He looks
the one who met Charlie in the alley or whatever and was like, "Hey."
I can't remember. He looks like him, but without the hat.
That's why he looks so familiar. Because I looked at him, I'm like, why does he look familiar? He's from Willy Wonka.
Like, come on, like.
Oh God.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know if you're looking at the same picture as I am.
I might be. Like, just his,
Hold on. That's...
Yeah,
there you go.
it's the same picture, yeah.
Discord. Yeah.
I'll put this picture as, like, the thumbnail for the thing. It's so over the top, but he looks so villainous.
Right? He's, like... in my picture, at least, he's, like, holding his hands together, and he...
He's literally doing, like, the corporate villain at the desk pose. Like...
Yes!
Like
Yes.
he looks like he should be stroking a cat.
He absolutely should. I would not be surprised if he had a big fluffy white cat that he
Yeah,
kept with
and
him.
like that his right hand is fake, and he pulls it off and fights Inspector Gadget. Like, come on,
Yeah.
this dude. Like, yeah, he looks exactly how I expected him to.
Yeah.
And like, man, like I assume his wife is probably dead at this point.
Probably. I would think so.
Um,
Like I said, she was the one that threatened to sue the
yeah,
newspaper
exactly.
for your defamation,
Yeah.
but didn't bring it to court.
Well, if she is, and if she's listening, I hate your husband. I mean, you know, you're from Arkansas, so you're probably a religious woman, so he's probably getting what he deserves now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but,
He definitely did a whole lot of greed.
yeah,
Had a whole lot of greed.
yeah. Greed, gluttony, pride, all that shit.
Oh yeah.
He's what St. Peter would call a home run. Like, that's he's covering all the bases, man. He's
Yeah.
like, Jesus Christ. And I'm sure he's got children who are alive, and maybe they're better, but probably not.
We can hope.
We
We
can
can
hope.
hope that since then they've gotten better. His great grandchildren or so
Yeah,
better.
I mean, he's probably got grandchildren who are grown by this point, if he was around in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like, probably around our age, but,
Yeah.
oh god. And hopefully they're better. Hopefully they aren't cartoon villains who
Yeah.
can't sit still with the $20 million that they have. Like, come on.
Right. Because that's the thing too. It's like
He already had a quarter.
I could. He already had a quarter, and he was already a multimillionaire businessman to start
Yeah,
with
yeah.
before even that.
Like,
So
at that point, you already got more money than you know what to do with. Why do you need
right.
more?
It's like what's the point? Why have you taken it away from, maybe not people on your side of the family, but people who were family to your family?
Yeah, like, you got a quarter, which is already so much money. Like, more money than I can fathom.
Yeah.
Sit tight.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you're good.
Yeah.
And you already have millions.
Yeah.
So, oh, God.
Yep.
This case just, I hate everyone in this case.
Yeah. Except for that one
Except for
officer.
that one
I'm gonna find his name
officer.
again, just so we're gonna give him props again because he did his job to the best of his ability. Let me see.
And Beth.
And Beth. Good job, Beth.
Good job, Beth.
It's Henley.
Henley.
Otis A. Henley.
Henley, you deserve a
Good
promotion,
job.
man.
Yeah. You did your job the way it was supposed to be done.
Props to you. You're the one good one. Yeah, and also, like, it's also just icing on the shit cake of just this asshole, because, like, Mike did it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, you speculate all you want. He's the one who did it. Like, come on. I mean, it may not have been him, but he paid the person who did it. You know?
Right. He's the one who
He ordered the
put
hit.
the money forward and he ordered the hit.
Yeah.
He's the one who.
Or he did it himself. I don't know. Maybe
he
he
did.
hired someone to get her, and then he killed her himself. But because she was never found,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Her body's never been found or anything.
So
Don't know what happened to her.
yeah, he did it. He's involved. If he were charged, he'd get the highest sentence out of anyone involved.
Yeah.
He did it.
Right.
So, and just this scumbag, this greedy fucking asshole. killing this woman who did so many amazing things in her life.
Yeah, this absolutely amazing woman who was very old when she
Yeah, she was in her
disappeared. She was
60s, yeah.
65. She was intending to retire soon and then bring forward the lawsuit, and that couldn't,
Right.
you know, go with him, but
God.
it's yeah.
Like this
Hearing
woman
all
who
the
brought
amazing things she did.
so much good, you know, and
Yeah.
brought forward, like, brought the country and especially Arkansas forwards
Yeah.
in time so much, you know, for women's rights and everything like that, and just for the quality of life for everyone. Getting
Right.
getting ended by this dude because he didn't have enough money with his tens of millions, like, it's frustrating, and then having that be
It
covered
is
up
frustrating.
by the cops, like it's just pile on pile, you know, like,
Yep.
ugh, it's so frustrating that,
It's extremely frustrating.
and the fact that he still hasn't been indicted, like,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
just shows how far his
And
influence spread, you know.
right. But also at this point, it's like after the case basically didn't go anywhere in the 80s, I'm wondering if it's one of those things where it's just sat on the cold case list and the police haven't even looked at it since
I'll bet
then.
that's
So
what it
they haven't even
is.
thought, yeah. I'm sure if someone brought it up, they would go, let's do this. Let's finish
Yeah.
this.
And if anyone in the Camden, is that the place?
Camden, yes.
The Camden Police Department is listening, or something, someone who can bring it to them, guys, look into it. Like,
Please.
finish what
Please
finish
give.
what the past generations of your office refuse to do, because the
Yes.
case deserves justice, you know.
Maud deserves
Exactly.
justice.
Maud and all the people she touched and influenced and helped deserve this closure, you know. Maybe we'll never find
Yes.
her body, and that sucks. But this is the closure we can bring.
Yes.
Like, indict indict Mike.
Yeah. Get Mike.
Indict Mike Berg. Like, ugh. Yeah. So that's, and if you can't, you know, if they still can't because of his influence or whatever twisted and disgusting sense of honor or whatever the current police force or the people above the police force have that are stopping this case from being solved, he's dead. You know,
Yeah.
you're not ruining his life, you're
Yeah.
not helping him in any way.
No.
Like,
And at this point, it's not like the money's magically going to transfer to the children of those nieces or
yeah,
anything.
exactly.
So,
Like, you're not helping anyone. You're just prolonging the confusion and pain and suffering of everyone involved and who has heard of this case. You know, like, screw your whatever honor or whatever excuse you're coming up with. Like, because I'll say it again, you took an oath. Like, that's what it comes down to, if nothing else.
yeah.
Like, ugh. And maybe they're still there, but in the future, whenever they're not, make it happen. You know.
Yep.
Ugh, God, just got a bad
Yeah.
taste in my mouth.
Yes, I'm sorry made everyone's blood pressure shoot through the roof with this one.
I mean, I'm glad, you know, you chose this case and you're sharing it.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully, it can bring some attention to it, and Maud can get some justice finally, and everyone can get some closure
right.
about this.
Because, I mean, the last unsolved case we did, that was, that was just through bad luck that it wasn't solved.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is
Right.
sheer willingness.
Corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they just won't solve it because they feel like it, or because
Right.
they feel like they owe it, and or maybe it's they feel like if they implicate their own police department, then they could get not in trouble, but you know what I mean. Like, you'd get
Right.
a bad
Yeah.
name.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, hey, you probably already have one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay away from Camden.
Yeah. I would not be traveling to Camden anytime soon.
Like, because I mean, if you want to clear your name, indict Mike Berg.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you do it, and it may sound like, I mean, it's literally the truth will set you free kind of thing, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's better to just tell the truth, get it out, than to keep lying and keep causing the people who you took an oath to protect and keep safe, to cause them to suffer more. Like, because I guarantee
Yeah.
this case, even
And it.
50 years later, more than 50 years later,
Mm-hmm.
70
Yeah.
years later almost, 65,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it's still hanging over the town. Because that's how these cases are.
Yeah. Cause. Yeah, and with how much influence Maud had in her
Yeah.
town, it's got to be.
And how big the case was. Like, you said it was national news.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
a murder like that hangs over the town. And, Mike's dead now, but, the people who helped him may not be.
No, they probably are.
Probably are.
Too.
But the people who knew, who were involved in the corruption, who were all that, all the people involved in the 85 stuff, they're probably still alive.
Yeah. They might.
And
Well, maybe. I'm not sure. It's all going to
maybe.
depend on how old they were at that time and that sort of thing, and how strong, I guess, they feel their connection is, right?
Right.
Because the sheriff, it was his family member who had worked for Mike,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure both of them are still dead. So I'm not sure how much, at this point, people in Camden would still be like, I owe Mike something.
Exactly. So,
But,
and if that's the case, then finish what you started, or didn't start, rather.
right, yeah.
Fin-
Finish what should have been finished a long time ago.
Exactly. Finish what Beth and, what was that officer's name? Otis?
Yeah, Otis Henley, I believe.
Yeah, finish what Beth and Otis started. Put the nail in it. Because you're not helping yourselves. You're not helping your town. You're not helping anyone. The only person you're helping is dead and burning in hell right now. Like,
Right.
well, and I doubt you're seeing his money anymore,
Right. Exactly.
Like, because
Like,
he's dead, so
I haven't
it
looked.
spread out, and if his wife's dead too, then it probably went to their children, but I doubt the children would want to be involved in that. I know I wouldn't.
Right? Yeah. No.
Like,
If we found out that our grandfather, great grandfather, whatever, had been involved with something, that's when you go, oh no, someone needs to get him.
exactly.
That should not be in our family.
Exactly. And, like, maybe his children are like, I don't want to be implicated, Like, I don't want the family to be implicated.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, in a lot of these cases, the children are the ones to bring forward. Like,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the Black Dahlia, George Hodel. It was his son who
Mm-hmm.
brought him forward as a suspect. And he's like
Right.
the guy. Like,
Yeah.
And so maybe it's just because they're rich and or something. I don't know. But
Maybe they want to bury it under the rug, right? Because you don't want to
Exactly.
smear your name.
Exactly. But, now that, we may be getting into children and or grandchildren and great grandchildren, the
Mm-hmm.
the time has passed. There's enough degrees of
Yeah.
separation to where, I don't think the police are getting paid off anymore. I don't think there's an honor system
Can't be.
anymore. There shouldn't have been
Right.
after he died, but
Right. Yeah.
maybe
But for some reason, there still
maybe
was.
the sheriff was like, "Oh, I don't want to disrespect my friend's name. I want to respect the dead," which is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But hey,
Yeah.
respect the dead, but not if they're Michael Berg.
But not if they're
Not if
murderers.
they're Mike Berg.
Not if they're Mike Berg.
Yeah, if they're murderers, then yeah. But
Well, I mean, that's like last week. How much did I shit on Smitty?
yeah, exactly.
He's dead.
But then 2 weeks ago, we talked about the people in the boat, and we talked about how
Yeah.
it's good to respect the dead, but they were victims,
Yeah, the
not
ceremony
killers.
that they have. Yeah.
There's a
Exactly.
big difference. And if you're saying
Big difference.
because putting myself in their shoes, in the shoes of that sheriff,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
that, okay, my old friend who is now dead, is being accused of murder. I'm going to do everything I can to investigate this and prove he's innocent.
Right. Yes. And if he's not, then that needs to come forward
Exactly.
too.
Which means
That's how justice should be
which
done.
means he knew.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
wasn't this is the first I'm hearing about this. Go away. This is this is coming to light now because of this article, and this investigator who's under me is investigating this, doing his job. I can't have anyone find out about this, which is
Yeah.
a bastardization of justice. That's
It
what
is,
it is.
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so clearly at least the sheriff knew. And if the sheriff knows, then
It had to be more than just that.
exactly.
I'm sure.
But I can say
Yeah.
definitively the sheriff knew.
Yeah.
And if he knew, then that means
And this was
he can.
hold on. This is the sheriff that was in the original investigation, not the one that McLean went to, right?
Both,
Do you remember
probably.
McLean?
McLean was the one who who looked for
yeah.
Tom, right?
McLean was McLean was the prosecutor who reopened it after Beth's article. And that sheriff is the one that his cousin had worked for
Right.
Mike.
Yes.
And who came and who did not like that McLean was coming into his jurisdiction without his permission or whatever.
That is who I'm talking about. But the investigator on the original case too, both of them,
Yeah.
I guarantee knew.
Yeah. Well, I give a little more leeway, I guess, to the one with the prosecutor, the sheriff with the prosecutor, because there seems to be a bit more separation there between him and Mike Berg. It was
He still stopped the investigation.
he did seem to. Well, it wasn't. I'm not gonna go into conspiracy theory, right? I'm not gonna say that he killed Jack, but
I'll take that leap. He did it. He fed him something.
But
He put a pillow over his face,
Yeah.
But if they're willing
Well-
to cover up murder, if you hold that for long enough, if you keep a secret long enough about a dead body, what's a second dead body, If it means
Right.
keeping that secret.
if it means keeping it quiet, yeah. I guess it depends. Like I said, it's going to depend on what kind of loyalty, I guess, he felt he had, because as far as I know, it was just his cousin that was related to Mike
Sure,
Berg. Not related, but like had worked for him.
Right.
So
But the thing is...
I don't know how far he'd be willing to go for Mike in those circumstances.
The thing is... It's just too suspicious that he died 7 hours later.
Yeah, I
Like if it was
agree.
like a
I do
week,
find
a
that very
month, something like
suspicious.
that, fine. But
Yeah,
that
even a few
day
days. Yeah,
is way
that
too
same day.
suspicious.
Yeah, after he'd been incoherent and stuff, so he couldn't answer
Yeah,
questions.
exactly.
Yeah,
He had probably already been drugged. Someone from the sheriff's office probably called and said,
yeah,
"Hey, the attorney's on his way. Do something."
yeah,
And he fed him something, and it took
yeah,
effect to where he was
yeah. I
incoherent,
could see even
and
if
then he fed him another dose, and he died 7 hours later.
mm-hmm, yeah, I could see even if it wasn't necessarily the sheriff himself was loyal to Mike,
Mm-hmm.
because again that separation was there. Someone above him
Yeah,
could have
yeah,
been related to that case, beforehand and was like, we're keeping this quiet. We don't want our names dragged through the mud
yeah,
either.
exactly. Like,
Showing that we were incompetent at that time.
and I mean, and also, the guy had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So if he dies, they're not going to run an autopsy on it. And even if they wanted to,
Yeah.
even if the family wanted to, the sheriff's office could just say, no, there's no reason to. He had cancer. Like,
Mm.
at that point, it makes me think they'd be willing to kill him, you know? Like,
Yeah.
if he was like a healthy young
Yeah. It's
man,
all.
then, you know,
Yeah. It'd be a little
maybe
suspicious
not.
there. But yeah.
But if he was sick and dying, then you have an
Already,
out,
yeah.
you know?
Pushing him into the grave.
Yeah, he's already got one foot in. Just help him with the other foot, you know.
Just shove him the rest of the way in
Yeah,
there.
like, so yeah, I'm blaming both sheriffs, but
Okay.
I mean, I think most of the police force knew, but or at least most of the
Yeah.
higher ups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The ones who were probably seeing the money.
but the thing is, if the sheriff has it, if the sheriff knows and is
Mm-hmm.
covering it up, then he can
Mm-hmm.
quash any
Mm-hmm.
investigation from the people below him.
Yeah.
And he can push away the attorney because it's my county, you know. I'm head honcho here, you know, that bullshit.
Yep.
But
Yep.
and you can basically just bully him out, you know. Like you can't do anything legally to stop
Yeah.
him from investigating,
Mm-hmm.
but you can make his life hell, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you can push him out of the investigation by force. You can brute force him out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you have the influence to do it. And yeah, the people above him probably knew too. The sheriffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guarantee they
For
did.
sure. I 100. I absolutely believe that the higher ups were the one getting the money so that they would quiet down everyone below them.
Exactly. And it's yeah, like and maybe it was just that first group of higher ups after the murder. And then by the time it got to 85, it wasn't so much that they were getting paid. It's just like, hey, everyone knows you don't talk about this case. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, leave this one unsolved. Let sleeping bodies lie. Which is a terrible thing for investigators.
If you're a police officer, please do not.
Do not let
just
sleeping bodies lie.
Yeah.
It's literally your job to not do that.
Yeah. Do your job.
Yeah, so anyway, in closing, Mike did it.
In closing.
The sheriff's office and the police force were involved in some way, at the very least in a cover up.
In some form or fashion.
And period. That's it. Like
That's
Mike
it.
was a douche who didn't deserve what he got. Like he didn't deserve to die happy. He deserved to die rotting in a jail cell.
No. Yeah, he deserved to die not having a penny of what was stolen from
Exactly.
Rose.
Yeah. He
And not even, he didn't deserve what money he had before that
no,
either.
no. Like he should have never gotten the money. He should have gone to jail for embezzlement and fraud and
Yeah.
probably money laundering.
Yeah.
Well, because he did that, right?
Yeah.
He did
Yeah.
that through the
Yeah.
will with the lumber company.
Yes, he for sure should have seen something for the fraud of him getting the deeds done that way. Because that was, especially because Rose, at that point, her mental health had declined due to her Alzheimer's. So that was for sure
Yeah.
some sort of fraud.
And having the will go to one of his employees and then to him, that's literally money laundering.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
dictionary definition. Like, so at the very least,
Yep.
he should have gone to prison for that. Before
Yes.
the murder.
Before the murder. Before the murder, yeah.
And, like, that being covered up is one thing. Because he's hurting people. He's hurting the family. He's hurting the nieces and their families.
Yes. Yes.
But he didn't kill anyone. And then he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's, so he did it. Period. That's it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, no ifs, ands, or buts. Close the case. Indict him posthumously. He did it.
Yes.
So, like, you can't get the other people who were involved because it's been too long. But if you can get, the head, then it doesn't matter. The case is still closed. You know.
Yeah. Does it? Yeah. Whoever pulled the gun or pulled the trigger on the gun in this case doesn't matter.
Right.
It's the person who was pointing at the target.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. like, even if he didn't pull the trigger, he loaded the gun, and that's what matters.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, if you can get the other people, great. But in all likelihood, they were probably just paid higher.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So, and they may not have even killed her. They may have just kidnapped her.
Right. Yeah. Because we don't know what happened to her after she disappeared.
Exactly.
Because we don't have her body. We don't know how she died. We don't know if she was just brought out to one of these many, pieces of land that Mike had taken control over and just left out into the wilderness, and she died from exposure. She could have been beaten. She could have been shot. She could have died in any number of ways.
If I had to guess what happened,
but we do know that she never returned.
Say, if I had to guess what happened, I would say she was kidnapped because there was no sign of struggle or blood in the home. So she was probably drawn outside, kidnapped.
Right.
Which makes me think that Mike would have been there on the scene.
I don't know, because I feel like it could go in one of two ways, right? If Mike was there, she might have been like, I'm not going anywhere near this dude without a witness of some sort, right?
Right.
Or it could be that she saw him, or it could be that she saw him and was like, why is this guy at my house? I'm going out to confront him, because she had confronted him before. So,
and it could have been something
I could see
like
it either way.
He was at the door, and he was like, "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about this." She opens the door. The guys grab her, take her to the car, and then they take her out to one of his lands, one of the real estate lands that he owns, uninhabited, full of trees. No one goes near. Go to the middle of the property where there's no one around, no one in eyesight. Kill her, be it shoot her, hit her over the head, something. And then they dig a deep hole, toss her in, fill it up, and leave.
Yeah. I don't even have to say a deep hole. It could be shallow. They could have just left her body where it lie at that point.
Yeah,
Because
but
they knew that they weren't going to be investigated, right?
yeah, that's true. But
So,
I mean,
and I think the only
assuming they
other
were
thing
thinking
I would
ahead, they
argue
would have
in.
buried her. But
Yeah. But I think the only thing I would argue with you is that they didn't grab her while she was at the door. I feel like they brought her outside beforehand because
right,
of her overprotective Dalmatian.
that's
I
true.
feel like that Dalmatian
That's true.
would have gone after someone if they grabbed her at the door.
That's true.
So I could see if maybe she got like a phone call or
Hmm.
something and was like, oh, hey, something. Well, of course, her car was there, so it couldn't have been far. Maybe someplace close that she could walk,
Right.
or even just maybe someone was causing a ruckus outside and she went outside to look and they grabbed her then. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Either way, that's what I think happened. And
Hmm.
I don't think her body will ever be found, assuming they buried it. Because, I mean, by
Right,
this point, there'd probably be nothing left.
right. Even, it'd probably be just even the skeleton would be
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah, exactly. And if they didn't bury her, maybe there's something still there, maybe not. But this was 65
Yeah.
years ago, so probably not.
Hmm.
So, yeah, unless they tossed her into a lake,
Hmm.
I doubt there's any body left, you know? And given how
Yeah. Yeah.
meticulous Mike seemed to be with his planning,
Hmm.
I doubt he would have done anything short of burying her, you know?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
he would have made sure she wouldn't have been found.
Yeah.
Like, even he didn't know where, like, even he couldn't remember where she was buried, you know? Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
so, yeah. But, yeah. If they had found the body, I bet they could have traced it back to Mike, or someone associated with Mike.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I'd bet money on that.
Hmm.
And the fact that they haven't, if anything, proves that to me more.
Hmm.
Because Mike was clearly a man of great influence and a whole lot of money.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, clearly, I mean, at least 200 million.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
you know, like, at least, and that's not including his own earnings.
Hmm.
So, he could have paid off whoever he wanted. And so, yeah, I think we're never going to find the body, which is a shame, but
Yeah.
as long as you know, you can close the case, you can close the case.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. At this point, that's all we can ask for is
get an indictment.
bring some sort of justice.
Yeah.
Bring some sort of closure.
Yeah. Uh, close the case and build a memorial to Maud in the city.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's right the sins of your fathers, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So, in closing, I know I said that earlier, but in closing, he did it. That's all. Like, nothing else. So, next week, we're covering California, right?
Yep. We're getting to California.
Covering California, because there are no B states, which threw me for a loop.
Yes, it's a little weird when you think about it to go from A to C, but then you're like, oh yeah, there is no B states. We have a ton of M states though.
Yeah, I imagine so.
There's so many M states.
There's Massachusetts, Maryland, Montana,
Mississippi,
Mississippi,
Missouri,
Missouri, yeah.
Maine,
Maine, Michigan.
Michigan.
That's 7.
Yeah.
Maybe forgetting one.
We'll just take one of them. I feel like we're forgetting several,
Right.
but just take one of those and change the M to a B, and then we can have a B one, and
Yeah.
we lose one of the many, many M ones.
Yeah, just make a Berryland.
There you go.
Yeah, we're good. But anyway, so California is next week. Diving into the
California
seas
next
with
week.
episode 5.
Yes.
So, anything you wanted to point at before we close out?
I don't think so. I think you've said everything that could be said, and I've said my part on that as well.
Yeah.
For California, it's going to be, I believe, a fairly long one.
Okay.
So it is unsolved. There is no technically unsolved to that
Right.
one.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yes. So hopefully everyone's blood pressure will go down a little bit
I hope so.
for that one.
We can have fun
Because-
conspiracy talk instead of instead of
Yes,
frustrated
instead of angry conspiracy talk. Yes.
Yeah. So, look forward to that, because I'm looking forward
So,
to it. I love talking
yes.
about unsolved cases.
They're fun.
They're very fun. So,
But it can be frustrating as well when, it feels like the victims or their families or anyone has closure to them. That can be frustrating as
yeah,
well. But
absolutely.
it can be fun speculating.
Yes.
I'll put it that way. Yes.
It can be fun talking about what happened and why and where.
What happened? What ifs?
Yeah. What
and-
ifs.
Yeah.
Who, how, why, all that stuff. So,
All that stuff.
until then, have a good evening, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Stay safe, everyone.